What's up, everybody? It's your boy D Max. So let's talk, man. Yeah, I said it on Mother's Day, this past Mother's Day. I got into a little verbal back and forth with my Hebrew Israelite brothers. And I just want to revisit this because this was during the time where I couldn't upload any videos on YouTube, and I was really, really burning to jump on here and share this with everybody. So I'm just giving a recap of what took place on Mother's Day Sunday. Um, so let me, before I even go into this, let me make a disclaimer and say that whenever I engage in a conversation with somebody, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into something just based off of emotion and feelings and just, allow that to dictate my conversation, because I found that oftentimes when you allow your emotions to dictate your conversation, you talk yourself into a spot where you don't come out looking well. And so whenever I choose to engage with somebody, it's going to be in an area where I'm very familiar and I'm comfortable speaking in that area. And so this is what happened. Um, so the Sunday, when we went into the church that morning, I go and I fellowship sometimes with the brethren at my wife's church, and I went this Sunday. It was Mother's Day Sunday. She wanted me to be there, support her and everything. And cool, got you. So there, we get there. Whole area's clear. Go in, have service, have a good time. Everybody's exiting. And you have the Hebrew Israelite organization posted up across the street from the church with their loudspeaker. And it's like right on cue, as they saw people start to come out of the church, they began to quote their doctrine. And, me being the guy that I am, back in 1999, going into the year 2000, I began to study the Hebrew Israelite doctrine because one of my brothers brought it to my attention, and he began to speak against a lot of the Christian values that we were all raised on, including himself. And our community had a very strong Christian background. So for him to come and start speaking against that foundation that we were based in, it caused a lot of confusion, a lot of anger amongst the brothers. And so we began to just talk to him and see where he's getting this information from, what it's derived from, and things like that. And as I began to research these things and search these things, I found that there was some very important information and some things that needed to be seen by me so that I could take the direction that I took in my life. Because they say hindsight is 2020. And as I look back, had I not saw that doctrine, I would have not went on the search or the journey that I went on to build myself up in the level of knowledge that I have about theology and just history and religion all together. So going back to that, as I did these studies and things, I learned that there was a lot of great information, a lot of truth. It was founded in a lot of truth, and it exposed a lot of the lies that we were told. And this created a level of bitterness within me and resentment towards the people that I felt like lied to me. And so for a long time, I had this chip on my shoulder and this anger about me towards certain groups of people who I felt like were indirectly connected to this great conspiracy against our people. And I went through a lot of years of having that bitterness and that anger within me, and it never did me any good. I always found myself motivated by this anger and this bitterness and this resentment. And so when I spoke to people with venom. I spoke to people very venomously. And, later on, years ahead, me and my wife, we're having a discussion. And, I get loud whenever I get compassionate, whenever I get passionate about something, my voice goes up. And my voice becomes more aggressive and takes on a whole different tone, more of an intimidating type of tone. And my wife began to point this out to me. Excuse me. And so I very strongly believe that aggression came from that period of when I was going through this. I don't want to call it an epiphany, but this revelation due to the Hebrew Israelite information. And there were a lot of things that I still hold on to and still practice to this day that I got from the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. And so I'm not downing the doctrine in any way. What I'm downing is the spirit in which a lot of these brothers find themselves operating and how ineffective they become because of their presentation. And so I said all that to go back to when I engaged with these brothers on Mother's Day outside of the church that I was fellowshipping at. And so, I come out, I see them over there. They begin to start to quote their doctrine, and they begin to say disparaging things about, just black men in general that's in the Christian church, and, throwing their little jabs. And in my mind, I had already played this scenario over for years. Believe me, when I tell y'all I've played this scenario in my mind so many times because I've seen the videos of people getting into it with with the Hebrew Israelite brothers, and a lot of times they'll have their loudspeaker and they'll have that one brother that's reading the scriptures very loud and they're talking over you, so it's like they're drowning out your point that you're trying to make because they really don't care about finding solutions and coming to a common ground. They really want to just exert a superiority over other people, and it's based on their ethnic group, it's based on their culture. And you know okay, if you study the Bible, if you are familiar with Christianity, God did have a chosen people, which were the Hebrew people, the Jews. And there's a lot of debate about who are the true Jews. There's been this debate for a long time. It's very controversial. A lot of people have picked up on it. People like Nick Cannon, for instance, he spoke about who the true Jews are, and Nick Cannon got his whole entire show canceled behind it. This is how much of a touchy subject this is. And so to speak about this type of controversy and to declare yourself as a part of people in a history, then that's a very strong precedent to set. That's a very strong and bold claim to set, and it'll ruffle some feathers. And so I understand where a lot of their tension and their confrontational spirit comes from, but at the same time, you're not going to appeal to a person's good nature with such an aggressive presentation, because this is something that I battle with myself. And so my confrontation with these guys was not a diplomatic confrontation, I should say. So when I walked up to the brothers, I started off with saying that, there's a lot of great information based in your doctrine. But the way you're out here and you disrespecting people, and the aggressive and the toxic spirit that you're coming in, that's not a representation of God. And so, the brother just kind of looked at me kind of funny, And then he went into his spiel. And I know this is something that he practices over and over. And this is whenever they go out, this is the way that he generally comes at people. And so he began by asking me a question, what color was Jesus? And so, okay, let me entertain this for a second. And I was like, whatever color the people were that came out of the region that he was born in, that's what color he was. And, I know he was alluding to the fact that Jesus could not have been the picture that's portrayed to us. I get it. Caesar Borgia's grandson. I get the history behind the image of Christ that people have been shown for all of these hundreds of years or whatever. I understand this, but in his assumption was that I didn't know this information. His assumption was that he was revealing something to me that was going to stop me in my tracks and blow my mind and make me just convert to what he believes in. And in making these assumptions, it really just angers people because you're basically insulting someone's intelligence as if you have some revelational knowledge that is going to blow their minds. Now, maybe for some people he would, but for dealing with me in that instance, that was not the right place or time, or the way that he spoke to me. It just didn't fly. And so we began to talk, and I'm like, all of this stuff this doctrine that you're learning, I've learned and unlearned this time and time again ever since 1999. So there's nothing out here that you are saying that is a revelational knowledge to a lot of us. And you would be surprised what people within the Christian church know and understand about the discrepancies in the Christian church, because there's discrepancies in every religion and in every culture, and so I was basing it on that, and then came about the question, well, just for sake of argument, what if Jesus was a black man? He looked just like me, wide nose, big lips, so on, so on. What difference does that make? Does that change the gospel? Does that change the message that he brought forth? Does that change his sacrifice? What has knowing that Jesus was black done specifically in your life that wasn't happening beforehand? And, this is the question that I pose for anybody who would come at me with that type of questioning and that type of talk. So what has it done for you? And if you believing in Yeshua is predicated upon him looking like you, then you've totally missed the message of Yeshua, period. Because he's not just the Christ of black people. He's not just the Christ of what you want to call Jewish people. He's the Christ of all people. And so this is what I was trying to convey to the brothers. But like I stated earlier, they're talking on this loudspeaker. And so in order to match their level of or their volume, you have to speak loudly. And so I'm speaking loud to the brothers. And so now they're starting to get kind of agitated because they beginning to understand that this dude knows what he's talking about. And now other brothers are coming over as well because they see me engaging with these brothers, and they really don't hear what I'm saying. All they hear is what the Hebrew Israelite brothers are saying over the loudspeaker. So now it looked like we're going back and forth in a hostile conversation when it wasn't really hostile. It was just us exchanging views. And so then it became a little more than it should, and people started to pour out of the church. And if you look over there, you start to see a gathering around it, and it just became a whole big thing, and it was blown totally out of proportion. There was no threats of any type of harm or anything of that nature at all. We were just having a loud, healthy conversation. And The police pulled up because anytime you have a bunch of black people get together and they begin to speak with aggressive tones, you're going to have police to pull up on the scene. So, and I don't know if anybody called them or not. I'm not sure. But any case in point, the police showed up and they cruised through just to make sure everything was everything. And it was. And there was a bunch of mixed feelings about this taking place, and then I began to think about it as me and my wife, we left and we went out to have dinner and things like that. And I began to think, because I always want to be right in a situation. I don't care what people think, but I care what the Most High think. And so I want to know just by him that I was doing the right thing and what I was doing, because, like I said, I didn't get out of character. I was no name calling, wasn't no crazy threats or nothing like that. We were just going back and forth with each other, sharing our views. And so, um, the Spirit of God brought to my remembrance. They would often go out into the square. They would be out in the town marketplace, and that's where they would have their debates with other religious scholars and other theologians from other places and things like that. And there was often many times where the disciples and Yeshua would have these debates to the point to where people would get into actual arguments, actual fights, and they're ready to start throwing hands with each other. And this was a common thing in the biblical days. This was something that sharpened your skills. This was something that uh, just brought the information to the people, because they didn't have social media and things of this nature to get the information out. It was all word of mouth in these marketplaces in the town squares. And so to be out in this type of environment and to engage in that type of thing, this is what we do as people of God. These are things that are going to take place in our lives. We're going to have these types of confrontations, and the way that you handle it is going to determine the results of the outcome. Now, sometimes you may handle it with some aggression, because some aggression is necessary. And long as you don't sin in your anger, I believe that you can definitely operate within righteous indignation to get your point across, because it's been shown time and time again throughout the history book that we call the Bible. So yeah, this whole thing went down, and the word was put out that if you see these guys out, they antagonize and stuff like that, to just pay them no attention. But I'm the type of person, I like to engage in these conversations. I like to have these conversations with people, because this is how we gain some understanding. And there's some guys in there who are not sure that they're on the right path, because they see what I pointed out, but they don't want to say anything and rock the boat, because they feel a part of something and they enjoy that acceptance from these brothers. And that's something that they may need in their life, or whatever their reason for being a part of that is. But some of these brothers need to understand that the message is always going to be the same, and that's the character of the Christ. It doesn't have anything to do with the tone of his skin. It doesn't have anything to do with his facial structure. None of that. That's why God said, do not have any graven images, because he knew that we were going to get caught up in images and things and likenesses, exactly how we are today. And so while we're sitting out here looking for an identity to associate ourselves with, so that we can feel better about who we are and feel like we're something, instead of seeking to find our true identity and walking within that which is Christ. Because no matter what worldly identity you associate yourself to, ultimately the goal is to be like Christ. So if you're not shooting for that mark and you're shooting for another mark to try to imitate some other image, you're way off course. And that's where I leave it with guys who uplift these different cultures and these different concepts and these different mindsets and things like that. I always bring it back to that. No matter what identity or label you try to place on yourself, your ultimate goal is to get back in position and in line with the mind of the creator. Excuse me. And that's how that whole thing went down, man. So if y'all want to come into the comments and you want to make a comment on this interaction that I had with these guys and just give me some more insight, I always welcome it, man. Much love to everybody out there. I hope y'all have a good weekend. We'll try to do the same. Y'all probably hear my fans going in the background because look, I'm in Central Texas and it's 104 degrees today. So yeah, I got my fans jumping. I hope y'all are comfortable wherever you are in your respective places. Have a good evening. Y'all know what I say, man. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.